So, what happens when a high-speed street race goes horribly wrong? You'd probably think, well, that's an open and shut case, right? But what if I told you a 5-year legal battle, the whole thing came down to the definition of a single word? Welcome to The Explainer.
So let's follow this case, right? We're going to dive into years of appeals and see exactly how just one, legal question completely flipped the script for the driver who survived.
All right, let's set the scene. Our story kicks off in the super early hours of July 6th, 2019 on Taiwan's National Highway 1.
So you've got two strangers, Feng and Chang. They get on the highway, probably just thinking it's a normal morning commute, but nope. Within minutes, they're locked in this spontaneous, super aggressive race. And get this, the whole thing, from the moment they started to the tragic end, it was all over in just 6 minutes. 6!
And, to really give you a feel for how intense this was, right before the crash, the victim's car was clocked at 200 kilometers per hour. That's what, around 124 miles per hour? Literally double the speed limit. This wasn't just, oops, I'm speeding a little. No, this was a full-on duel on a public highway.
So, okay, one driver is tragically killed, the other one made that last reckless move. The case against the survivor, Feng, seems pretty simple, right? It feels like it should be anyway.
And that's exactly how the Shilin District Court saw it. They found Feng guilty of one big serious crime, endangering public safety causing death. The sentence? 4 years behind bars.
And you know what? That verdict was even upheld on the first appeal to the High Court. So for all intents and purposes, it looked like this case was done, closed. But this is exactly where our story takes a wild legal turn.
Because when the case finally made it to the Supreme Court, everything changed. The judges, they didn't just look at what the drivers did. No, they zoomed in on something totally different. They started questioning the actual wording of the law itself.
And this, right here, was the absolute game changer. The court basically said, hey, wait a minute. This law, the one about protecting public safety, isn't it designed to protect the public? The innocent bystanders, not necessarily the people who jump headfirst into the danger themselves.
And that one question, it sent shockwaves through the whole case. Think about it. Was the victim, Chang, who was flooring it right alongside Feng, was he part of the public that this law was written to protect?
So the court drew this really sharp line in the sand. On one side, you've got the public. Other drivers, people just trying to get to work, totally uninvolved. And on the other side, you've got the racers. The people who willingly together created this bubble of extreme danger and then stepped right inside it.
This all comes down to a legal idea called victim self-endangerment. Basically, it means if you knowingly and willingly put yourself in a risky situation, the law might look at what happens next a little differently. By racing at those insane speeds, Chang put himself in harm's way, and that one fact was about to change everything.
So, with this new legal playbook from the Supreme Court, the case gets kicked back down to the lower courts. And now they have a whole new puzzle to solve. How do we actually apply this thing?
And what happened next was this kind of legal ping-pong match. The case just bounced back and forth between the High Court and Supreme Court. It became less about the facts of the crash and more about wrestling with what the crime even was. They were really trying to pin down the definition. Now, this might sound like they're just splitting hairs, but it was absolutely critical. Were these guys partners in a crime, or were they just two people committing the same crime at the same time next to each other? At the end of the day, the courts landed on this. Because the victim was a willing participant, that first charge, it just didn't fit anymore. Not in the way it was originally intended. Okay, so after years of this back and forth, multiple trials, the High Court finally comes up with an answer. And the final verdict? It looked nothing like where this whole journey began. I mean, just look at this. That first charge, endangering safety causing death, totally gone, thrown out. Instead, Feng gets convicted of 2 separate crimes, and his total sentence actually got a little shorter.
So, you're probably wondering, why 2 crimes? Well, the court's logic was super precise. First, the act of racing itself put everyone else on the road, the actual public, at risk. That's crime number 1. Then, his specific negligent lane change that directly caused his competitor's death, that's crime number 2. And for that first charge, the key is that the victim was no longer seen as the public. He was a participant.
It's a really fascinating, precise legal answer, isn't it? The law found a way to punish the driver for 2 things at the same time. For the general danger to the public, and for the specific action that killed his fellow racer. It's all about separating the 2 different harms to assign accountability in just the right way.
All right, so after that whole long, winding legal road, what's the takeaway? Why does any of this matter to us?
At the end of the day, this case gives us this incredible peek under the hood of the justice system. It shows that justice isn't always just about what happened. It's about carefully, meticulously applying definitions and principles. And the really big one here is that it shows how your choice to willingly accept a risk, can completely change the legal story when that risk blows up in your face.
And really, that's the big question this case leaves hanging in the air, right? In any risky situation, where does your personal responsibility end and someone else's legal duty to you begin? It's a tough one, and as we've just seen, the answer is rarely simple. Thanks for digging into this with me on This Explainer.